Hey guys, welcome to the Silver Report. Here we are. It's Thursday, February 16th, 2017, and let's get into some of the economic factors that will be playing a part into the price of silver. And what we are seeing, number one, there's big news. We see that the housing market index by the National Association of Home Builders came out. And it's showing, now we did a video not too recently, or not too long ago, and it was discussing some of these jobs that came out in the job market. We know that Janet Yellen was just testifying before the Senate, and she was there, and she was saying that they're almost meeting their goals for unemployment rates. We saw that a big part of the jobs that were added in the job market were into the new housing construction, real estate, the banking industry. And so what we're seeing here in February, we have just had a decline in the confidence in the from Wells Fargo National Regional Housing Market Index. And what we're seeing is there's a decline because they're not seeing the buyers. They're seeing that sentiment, that excitement that they thought was going to take place has been deflated, further exacerbated by the fact that these lower cost loans have just been restructured. So they're not finding a market there. What they're finding is that these were entirely misplaced. So all of those gains translate to now a very significant decline in employment, as well as some of the hours being decreased in the real income. We also have a drop now in consumer confidence in the housing market index. And so what we're seeing, for example, is another very terrible thing going on, and it's kind of a foreshadow of the things to come for this administration. We see now the ethics office wants to probe into Kellyanne Conway's endorsement of Ivanka Trump's ban or brand, how she brought it up. We also see that Michael Flynn has stepped down. We see that Donald Trump's pick for labor, he is now also Putzer. He's ready to withdraw as Trump's labor nominee. They said that he's covered with scandal. They see that they're in the news. They're talking about investigating Donald Trump now for connections to Russia. And this is a part of the globalist script. We see Merkel's out there. Oh, Russia's hacking me. We see the guy down in polls in France. Russia's hacking me. And now we see, oh, we need to investigate Donald Trump for his connections to Russia. And somehow they through their propaganda tactics, have painted Russia as this big bad wolf that's going around. And so far, it's just a word that's like a flashpoint. Andrew Putzer withdrew Wednesday as President Donald Trump's labor secretary nominee. They say the controversy deepened over his personal life, his private sector background. He was a fast food executive. He'd been scheduled for the Senate confirmation hearing Thursday, but he ran into trouble on Capitol Hill over his admission that he employed an undocumented housekeeper. So we see that the elite are not beaten down. It takes more than an election to beat them down. And so we see in the 52 to 48 Senate, 3 Republican defections would have doomed Putzer, and in all 48, a Democrat voted to deny him. So we see that they are at war with Trump's policies within labor. We see Kellyanne Conway now coming under fire. And so we are in for some rocky ground if you think that things are just going to go so great the way you are hoping they will go, because the elite, as we discussed before, they don't want to lose power. They're not going to go down without a fight. The controllers of this economy are not going to, they've created vast amounts of wealth on the backs of the American people, vast amounts of wealth. And so things are not going to go over as easily as planned. And besides all that, the fact was already done in 2008 when they began to print this money. When this confidence goes up and this money begins to circulate, as it already is, we see inflation on the rise. For the past 7 years, the country in Zimbabwe, they've been running on foreign currency After a 500 billion% inflation, it led to the national dollar being abandoned in Zimbabwe. The new bond notes are an attempt to complement those foreign currencies, which are in short supply following a collapse in exports. Despite a promise that the new notes will mirror the US dollar's value, many are skeptical after what happened the last time they trusted local currency. So this is what we're looking at. Zimbabwe was once so gripped by hyperinflation that the central bank could no longer afford paper on which to print the practically worthless $1 trillion notes. So imagine that, going to the store with a $1 trillion bill. The government reported in July 2008 that Zimbabwe was experiencing inflation of 231 million%. And so what we're facing in the United States is much more severe. It's interesting when the people come through and they discuss. It's interesting to note the country is now grappling with the opposite problem. Like Britain, Japan, the US, other nations dealing with the consequences of weak demand and cheap oil. Zimbabwe is threatened more by the prospect of falling prices. But that doesn't mean its people are ready to trust that hyperinflation won't happen again. Because in a world where the government has the ability to print freely floating fiat currency attached to nothing, no gold standard, large denomination notes are not the preserve of developed nations, though. The United States printing high-value notes until 1969, when denominations of U.S. currency over $100 were declared obsolete by executive order of President Nixon, partly due to concerns over their use in organized crime. So that's how they paint it. They wanted to eliminate the ability, they eliminate the gold standard. So we are facing the same issue. And the fact, and this is what the Federal Reserve is so afraid of, this is what they don't want the people to know. And they're trying to find a way to contain this problem. And so what we're facing here, the largest denomination bill printed by the U.S. was the $100,000 gold certificate. It was a portrait of President Woodrow Wilson. And so what we've seen since we've departed from that, now we don't necessarily have bills that high denominated anymore, but what we'll see is the equivalent of what was $100,000 in 1930 is now $1 million. So our currency has devalued so much since then. And with this vast amounts of money printing, this is what guarantees the price of silver and the price of gold will rise. It doesn't matter about these little market ups or downs. They are irrelevant. The fact of the matter remains that their value pinned against the US dollar will rise because the US dollar is following the same steps that they took in 2008 in Zimbabwe. So soon as the paper costs more than our $100 trillion notes in the United States, the price of silver will have a significant return, while those holding cash, those having their money tied up in pensions or in the market, any form of cash will have the value depreciated. So that's what we're facing. Despite all these economic problems that are popping up all over the place and the holes in their plan, the holes in their facade that they're trying to play for us, the fact that they've printed this money, they've devalued the currency, it's debased currency, it's becoming worthless. That's why inflation is on the rise. That's why they have to raise interest rates. They don't have a choice, even though there's the possibility it collapses the market immediately, pops the bubble, and collapses his whole house of cards. They have no choice. They have no choice. The day of reckoning has come. All right, thank you guys for joining me. If you like the content, be sure to subscribe, like the videos, share the videos, get the word out. We have to wake the world up to the Federal Reserve scandal. And I thank you guys all so much. And again, as always, stay safe.